Okay, I'm Jason Shropshire, Senior Vice President and CTO at InfusionPoints.
And I'm Gary Daemer, President of InfusionPoints.
So today, Gary and I are going to talk a little bit about something that's very important here at InfusionPoints, direction we've been going for a while, and that is our path toward ISO 27001 and SOC 2 compliance. And we're going to talk about a little bit about the roadmap to getting there and how it relates to the way that we support customers in getting to achieve their compliance initiatives as well. So Gary, I'm going to ask you a few questions, and we'll get started and go through this.
Sounds good.
Awesome. All right. So why was it so important for us to obtain ISO 27001 and SOC 2 certifications at this time?
Okay. Well, initially, InfusionPoints really started out as a traditional consulting company, helping our customers figure out how to integrate cybersecurity into what they do to improve their security posture, typically around security policies, procedures, security architectures, mostly helping them with meeting government standards as well. Mm-hmm. But really along those lines, it really was almost like have laptop will travel type of organization, being on customer sites, helping them figure out what they really needed to do. Mm-hmm. But about 6 years ago, we started helping Dell Federal Services with a FedRAMP offering, and you might want to speak a second or so on that.
Yeah. So, I guess it was 2013 or so that we got involved heavily in FedRAMP, and we were taking the Dell Cloud for U.S. government through the process of FedRAMP accreditation, and we ended up in a position where we were helping out with operational support. So It became really, really important for us to kind of shore up that area of our business and do all the right things to make that happen.
So really what that led us into, initially we really started helping them with integrating, and building out their documentation around FedRAMP, and then also helping them implement those security controls in their cloud service offering at the same time. Mm-hmm. But going through that process, they asked us, hey, would you want to go ahead and help us with the operational services? So we built our cybersecurity center here in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, to support that cloud. And we went through 2 audits, FedRAMP audits, with this process to really focus on our government services. While we were doing that, we also decided what we're doing for Dell, we could sell that to the commercial space as well. Absolutely, so we wanted to be able to get focused on that commercial space. And really, that is the main reason why we wanted to go with the ISO 27000. We've been through 2 audits on the FedRAMP government side, but we have this whole line of commercial service offerings that we have. So we wanted to be able to add an additional international security standard to bring some credibility and some additional compliance layers into what we were doing as well.
Okay, great. Yep. So, getting into the process of getting the accreditations, right, of getting those certifications, how do we go about preparing for the audit?
Well, almost everything that we do, we focus on what's it going to take to get the job done. So we really establish a project with a way to measure the activities that need to get accomplished. We typically use an agile type fashion to build out what we're doing. In this case, we used our Jira board, our local Jira board, for managing all the activities that we needed to do. And then along that line is really one of the first things that we did, since we're mostly a government shop and we mostly leverage NIST for our security tools. We really started to map all of our controls that we were doing to the ISO framework, and trying to figure out what we were doing today and how would that actually map to what we were doing or what we needed to do for the ISO 27001 and SOC 2. As we did that, we really started looking at the gaps. Where were the gaps? And there were some minor gaps between the 2 standards of actually what they were looking for from an evidence standpoint. But mostly we had everything ready to go with a few tweaks, and then along with documentation and a few of our processes as well. Mm-hmm. Along that same line, one of the things that we like to do is really make sure that we're doing the right thing. So we started an internal audit program. And since we're already an ISO 9001 company, we already have an internal audit for our quality management system. So we just applied that same internal audit process that we already had in place for our ISO 27001 and SOC 2.
Mm-hmm.
We also perform mock audits, and this is something we assist our customers with at all times, is helping them figure out what they need to test for during the actual audit process. So with this, we didn't do mock audits on the entire 27001 standard. We really focused on the areas we felt we were a little bit weak in. So somebody could come in, ask us those tough questions, right, because the auditor is going to ask you those tough questions. So you might as well learn them ahead of time, as opposed to
be prepared for those key areas. Yeah. So I mean, one thing that really I thought was really interesting about what you were saying is we based really the ISO controls around, and we map those to a framework that we're more familiar with, like NIST. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I think that that's pretty key, because we're a federal. We traditionally and primarily have been a federal shop. Yep. Mm-hmm. FedRAMP and NIST 853, and those are the frameworks that we're very familiar with, and we made those work, since that's kind of our vertical. Right. We made that work for the ISO controls instead of working for the ISO controls. Correct. Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I think that that's key. Is make whatever vertical you're in, make that work for you. Yes, I totally agree with that. And then two other points I'd like to make as well is, through this process, we also did many quality reviews on all of our procedures, policies as well, and also our architecture to ensure that met the ISO 27001 standard as well. Mm-hmm. And performing live test scenarios, I can't stress enough how important that was. And not most folks think when you talk about live tests, they're thinking about pen test or vulnerability test. I'm talking about test your AC controls and make sure your access controls, to make sure that you're meeting the requirements as well. So getting down past all the preparation kind of stuff, what was it like to go through the audit? Actually, you're in with auditor, and now it's here we are. There you go. There you go. I mean, tell us about that experience. You've already told me a lot about it, but tell our audience. There you go. So I have to admit, it was a lot more stressful than I ever expected. We've helped many customers through audits, and I feel the stress of those audits. But being the business owner and the system owner of what was being audited, somebody was peeling back the onion, layers back on our particular project, and looking underneath the covers and trying to find things. I think the stress was all on me, because I enjoy stress because I'm in cybersecurity, and that's kind of what we live for, right? But at the same time, the biggest stress, I believe, was applying the NIST framework to the ISO framework, and then being able to make sure we communicate all the ways that NIST will map right directly to those frameworks, and then be able to explain it in the words that the auditors understand. I think that understanding the auditor's language and to be able to translate between NIST and ISO, that was extremely important. And that goes back to something I even said to the auditor a couple times along the way, is we're doing ISO to ensure that our business can compete in this new operational security space, and really focus on how ISO can fit us, as opposed to making sure that we fit into ISO. Right. Because we're not doing a framework to just do a framework. We're trying to do something to ensure and show people that we are following good security practices. Right. Like in cases where we were told, where's your risk treatment plan? By the auditor, we said, okay, well, here's how we treat risk, and this is the way that we do it. Right. Which is, follows more the NIST approach. Correct. And instead of looking for a specific, document name, risk treatment plan. Yeah, exactly. We call it risk management, but exactly. Mitigation. But that's okay. It was just a little bit of word translation. So, given this experience now, I mean, what do you think the differences are between preparing for your own organization's audit versus what we've traditionally done as consultants? We've always helped customers prepare for their own audits across a lot of different frameworks. Correct. So, I mean, what insights have you taken away from this as to the differences? I mean, what's different? To me, there are really three major things that I see. And the first is really organizational change. And I really think that in cybersecurity,
Some of the biggest challenges that we have with working with additional customers is the fact that the person that we're working with may not be able to impact the people change. In cybersecurity, people are typically the number one issue.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're trying to change the way they're logging in, or you're trying to change the way they're encrypting their laptops, or not allowing them to use USB sticks anymore, I can impact that change pretty quickly because I can say this is the way it's going to happen, and that's what ultimately happens.
Right.
But for our customers, they may not actually be able to make that impact or make that change as quickly as required.
Yeah, organization change management's always been one of those.
Yes,
issues.
it's definitely it's definitely one of the largest issues. I think one of the other areas is really having a picture of what all is going on in their environment as well, understanding what's impacting this particular project. Really being able to focus on, all right, Team A has 14 other changes that they're trying to implement, while Team B is doing something totally different and not being able to focus their attention on what needs to be changed. Whereas myself, I could walk around the office and say, hey, Jason, I need your team to focus on this, and guess what happens? Your team focuses on what we need. So, immediate hands-on interaction with the team, whereas typically we're working through a POC who may not have as much ability to make the changes required.
Yeah, and we have the benefit of actually being a security company too.
There is that benefit as well.
Makes it a little bit easier.
Well, explaining to somebody why we need to do something a certain way, even though we've been doing it that way for a while, and we explain the benefits of it, they understand it right away.
Sure.
Why haven't we been doing this the entire time? So, but that gets right to the next point, which is really, as you're doing this, think of continuous improvement at all times, right? Mm-hmm. So you think about when you first lay in what you're trying to get accomplished, your organization may not be a mature security organization. But as Jason just said, we're a security organization, so we're fairly mature in what we do.
Sure.
So don't try to make things perfect all at once because you'll never get there. So what you want to do is build something, mm-hmm. make it better, and then make it better, and make it better each time.
Awesome. So overall, in the process, what's the overall, epiphany or insight that we've taken away?
I think for ourselves, and then as we talk with customers, I think really going into this, have some good guiding principles. And if you talk to most of the customers that we work with, they'll probably truly understand what we're saying here. It's really some of those guiding principles is continuous improvement. Think of it as I'm going to make things better today. I'm going to make things better tomorrow. And each time we go about this, we're going to make things better each time. Don't strive for perfection right away, because you're just not going to get there. Mm-hmm. And then don't overcommit. So let's just say the requirement says you need to do something annually. Well, in your documentation, do it annually. If you want to do it twice a year, then do it twice a year.
Sure.
But make sure you write the documentation, your standard operating procedures or your policies to meet those minimal standards. But if you need to do it twice a year, then do it twice a year. And also, along those same lines is make sure you document in your documentation just enough to make it clear to the auditors you know what you're doing and you're focused on achieving the essence of the rules as well, whether it's security policies, your SOP, or your technical architecture as well. Mm-hmm. And then testing. I know I just mentioned that a second ago, but testing those key controls, the areas where you feel weak. Make sure you're doing your internal audit on those. Make sure you're doing those mock audits on those as well. And really, at the end of the day, you need to make ISO work for you to really make it fit your business, right, and not the other way around. I think that's the key. And
we learned this early on with our ISO 9001 certification, mm-hmm. right? Is that if you're going to take the time to do these certifications, invest the time, the money, and the blood, sweat, and treasure, into getting these, you really want them to benefit your organization, right? You don't want them to be just a paper exercise,
right?
So that means making it, truly finding how it fits in, how it can improve your processes, and make things ultimately better.
Absolutely, that's why we do this.
Well, great. Well, I really think that this whole process for us has just been about enriching our understanding of it, and now we see it more from our customers' mm-hmm. perspective than we ever have. So if anyone out there is in need of assistance with ISO 27K, ISO 9000, SOC 2, or any other certifications. Of course, we've been doing a lot of FedRAMP accreditation work. Let us know, and I'm sure that our experience and with multiple customers now and increasingly our own experience with our infrastructure could help. So thank you very much for watching.
Yeah, thank you for your time.